Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about 10 of the most extreme body horror movies. And with that, let's get to the list. Thanatomorphose is a 2012 Canadian horror movie. Directed by Eric Fellerdu, it stars Caden Rose, Rose Denis Gagnon, and Emile Baudry. One day, a young, beautiful woman wakes up to find her flesh is rotting. It's hard to find the words to describe how sickening and disgusting and demented this movie is. This is not like most of the movies I talk about. I'm not even really recommending this, at least not to most people. But if you find super disturbing, very artsy, creative, really uncomfortable, really disgusting, I mean, to the point that it makes you gag, if you find that type of stuff compelling, then this is definitely one to check out. But as many things as I watch, I had a hard time getting through this. I've heard about this movie for a long time, and I just never watched it because from what I heard, it just didn't really sound all that intriguing to me because it really is just a gross out movie. The artistry, the story, the meaning behind it, I get all that. That's great. But for the most part, this is just a very revoltingly disgusting, gross movie. But if you take a step back and you look at it as a piece of art, a body horror, disgusting, so disgusting that, I mean, the movie feels like it smells. Like, that's how gross we're talking about. If you look at it as a piece of art, it's very, very effective at what it's trying to accomplish. However, I do feel like the message and what the filmmaker was trying to get across is kind of lost in all of it because of it really just being so disgusting to look at. It's just one nasty scene after another. I mean, what you picture is probably not even as bad as what actually happens on camera. A woman is literally rotting away, and the idea behind that, what all goes into that, and how it all plays out here is really not fun to watch. But it is intriguing, it is interesting, and like I said, if you take a step back and look at it as a piece of art, it is effective. Either way, when you're talking about body horror movies, it doesn't get much more extreme than this one.
It's a weird business, Sid.
Antiviral is a 2012 sci-fi horror movie, written and directed by Brandon Cronenberg. It stars Caleb Landry Jones, Sarah Gadon, and Malcolm McDowell. In a blackly satirical near future, a thriving industry sells celebrity illnesses to their obsessed fans.
My clients want to feel more connected to those people that they see in the magazines and on television.
Enjoy. So far, I've had all her diseases.
So over the last half a dozen years or so, I've really become a big fan of Brandon Cronenberg. If you're not aware, this is Brandon Cronenberg, the son of David Cronenberg. And this was his first film. He's gone on to do a number of other ones that I think are fantastic. I just always enjoy everything that he puts out. And this is his first film, so there are a few things about this. It is a little clunky and disjointed at times. It's not a perfect movie. It is still really, really well done, and you can see what he would go on to become as a filmmaker, especially when it comes to the imagery and the message that's here. Because this movie just gets more and more prevalent as the years go by. The obsession, the godlike status that we as a society put our celebrities is just getting out of control. And this movie, what seems satirical and funny at the time, is starting to feel more and more like almost something that you could see happening in reality. Because like I've talked about before, especially when I talked about the movie Misery, I just don't understand this idol worship that some people have where they put these humans in this godlike status and they just worship like the ground they walk on. I mean, collecting their hairs, like their spit, their chewed gum. I mean, there's literally on eBay celebrities' chewed gum goes on sale. I mean, it's crazy to me. And this movie doesn't take that much further because these people are so obsessed with them, they want to feel what they feel. And so they're willing to take on their illnesses, their disease, and all that stuff to feel more like their celebrity that they look up to. Besides that, I love this immaculate, almost surgical quality that a lot of this movie has. Like, where it almost feels surgically clean and yet dirty at the same time. Like, it takes these two things and juxtaposes them in a really special way. Also, Caleb Landry Jones is one of my favorite up-and-coming stars. Like, every role he's in, he just seems to get better and better and better. He really sells this. He's a lot of what makes this such a compelling film. But if you've yet to see this and you're a fan of body horror, I think you definitely should add this to your list.
You're gonna go to hell. You're gonna go to hell.
Swallowed is a 2022 horror movie. Written and directed by Carter Smith. It stars Cooper Koch, Jenna Malone, and Mark Patton. It follows two friends who on their final night out end up smuggling a wrapped substance via swallowing, and their night out takes a horrifying turn.
They go down the hatch before they make the trip.
Come on, that wasn't part of the deal. No way.
Let's just go. I don't need the money. Let's just go.
Listen, you're not backing out now, okay? It's too late for that.
So I was blown away by this movie earlier this year, and the body horror is such a physical, real feeling type that when I was putting this list together, this one immediately jumped to mind. However, just like with a lot of body horror movies, it's not going to be for everyone because all the movies on this list address body horror in very different ways. And this is not going to work for a lot of people, especially guys. If you have a problem with gay men, if you have a problem with seeing male nudity, swinging dong and all on screen, you might want to avoid this one. Me personally, I have no problem with male nudity, female nudity, you name it. If it leads to a good story and it makes sense in the narrative and what's happening, then I'm all on board, and that is the case here. Because this is not an exploitative type of film by any means. These just happen to be two gay friends, and when they swallow this substance, there's only one way for it to come out, and when bad guys get involved and whatnot, it gets really disgusting. I mean, it is one of those, like Thanatomorphose, that might make you lose your lunch, but I mean, here we are. We're talking about body horror. So when you're talking about sick and twisted body horror, hopefully it's going to be visceral and affect you in some way. And this one very much does. Besides that, the cast here is incredible. Cooper Koch, especially. I have never heard of him or seen him in anything prior to this, but he is just absolutely incredible here. But he gives such a moving and disturbing performance here. On top of that, you have Mark Patton here, and I hadn't seen him in anything since he was in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And he is unrecognizable in this role. He becomes just the most disturbing villain, and he's incredible. But if you're looking for a very realistic body horror movie, this is one you definitely need to see.
Mä pidän susta huolta.
Hatching is a 2022 Finnish horror movie. Directed by Hanna Bergholm, it stars Siri Salarina and Sofia Heikkilä. It's about a young gymnast who tries desperately to please her demanding mother, and when she discovers a strange egg, she hides it and keeps it warm. But when it hatches, what emerges shocks them all.
Mä pidän susta huolta.
I adore this movie. I love it so much. It's one that is more on the fun side. It's not as disturbing or disgusting or anything like that as the other ones I've been talking about so far. This one deals with a lot of the practical body horror, creature design, that kind of body horror that is very, very entertaining. But there's also a compelling story here and interesting characters because there's a lot of us that have had overbearing parents in one way or another. And so it's easy to relate to this story and this poor girl and what she's having to go through to please her mom and just the whole family dynamic of them. And then on top of that, you add in this weird creature that is part of the whole story. It is meant to be seen as more of like an allegory, even though it is there in a practical sense and all that. The movie in general has more to say than just what you see on the surface. But if you're a fan of practical effects and body horror, stuff we haven't seen a lot of since really the 80s and 90s, this is one I think you definitely need to see.
He's going to love me.
Grafted is a 2024 horror movie. Directed by Sasha Rainbow, it stars Jess Hong, Joanna Sun, and Eden Hart. A bright but socially awkward exchange student takes her craving for popularity to horrifying heights.
Potential here. Burns victims, deformities.
Oh my god.
Here's another one that is very entertaining. It dropped earlier this year on Shudder, and it's just cool. It's not like a lot of movies we see lately. Like I was saying with Hatching, we don't see a ton of practical body horror. And so this is another one that has a lot of the very gross body horror, gore effects and things like that. And it takes it darker and more twisted and weird as the movie goes along. It also has this fun science gone wrong kind of element too that also reminded me of stuff from the 80s and 90s. And this is another one too that has a lot to say kind of under the surface. Like if you listen to the messaging that's here, there really has a lot to say, but it doesn't take itself too serious. It's not overly complicated. It's easy to follow, and mostly it's just a good time. But I think it's one you'll have a great time with, so I definitely recommend it.
我找到你了。
The Sadness is a 2021 Taiwanese horror movie, written and directed by Rob Jabez in his feature film debut. It stars Barant Zhu and Regina, a young couple trying to reunite amid a city ravaged by a plague that turns its victims into deranged, bloodthirsty sadists. Bloody, gory, disgusting. This is about as bloody of a movie as you're gonna find. The violence in this, it's insane. It's turned up to 10, maybe even 11. I mean, it really goes for it. It's constant. It doesn't hold anything back. Pretty much if you can imagine it as far as gore and disgusting violence goes, you're gonna see it in this. But holy shit, the effects in this movie, the effects team, the practical effects, they were really earning their money. I mean, it is amazing all the different practical things that they have to do effects wise in this. Because if there's CGI, there's not much of it. The majority of this, you can tell, is practically done. It feels so visceral and real. But besides that, it's extremely sadistic. This movie is deranged, disturbing. There's a sexual component involved into the crimes and things that are committed as well. So it really is offensive on a lot of different levels. But if you're in the mood for something sick, twisted, and disturbing, The Sadness is a fantastic pick.
Be amazing.
The Seed is a 2021 sci-fi horror movie, written and directed by Sam Walker. It stars Chelsea Edge, Lucy Martin, and Sophie Vavasseur. What starts out as a girl's weekend getaway to the Mojave Desert becomes a tale of horror, death, and alien invasion. This movie is so sick, man. I love it. I had heard of this for a while, but didn't check it out until earlier this year. And I've become such a big fan of it now. It's the kind of horror, the indie horror that I love so much, especially when you're talking about body horror, because it starts out, it doesn't seem like it's gonna be much. You gotta be kind of patient with it for the first maybe 20 minutes or so. The characters aren't all that likable, and you're just kind of like, a bunch of influencers that are all about, you know, their looks and blah, blah, blah. Super shallow, like I said, unlikable. But hang in there, stick with it, because ultimately where this goes is savage as fuck. It gets gory, gross, the body horror is fantastic, super practical effects, stuff that's very original and one of a kind in a lot of ways, stuff that you don't see a ton of. There's a fun campy quality to it, very much has that 80s kind of feel to a lot of it. And every time you think you've kind of seen where it's gonna go, it continues to ramp it up and get more and more bonkers and insane. But this is a fantastic, bizarre little movie that I highly recommend.
Into the heart of darkness.
Crimes of the Future is a 2022 sci-fi horror movie. Written and directed by David Cronenberg, it stars Viggo Mortensen, Leah Seydoux, and Kristen Stewart. The story follows a performance artist duo who perform surgery to a live audience in a future world where humans no longer experience pain, and surgery is the new sex.
Surgery is sex, isn't it?
Is it?
You know it is. Surgery is the new sex.
This one is super out there, but if you're a fan of David Cronenberg and haven't seen this, what are you doing? Because this one is so much fun, man. The effects that are involved, the weird sci-fi nature, as far as the direction the world's gonna go and how it all plays out, it's great. I'm not saying it's Cronenberg's best work or anything like that, but it's entertaining as hell. I personally will never get tired of Cronenberg's style of making films. I love the look of them, the pacing of them, the weird future that he envisions, and the parables, the message, so to speak, that he presents about, you know, things that are almost meant as like a warning to our future selves. And even if I don't always agree with his message and what he's trying to say with his movies, he always has such a cool way of presenting them, and not in a way that's overbearing and loses the plot. Instead, it's still super entertaining, even, like I said, if you don't always agree with what he's saying. But I just love the look of some of the weird things that he built in this, like this weird chair where the guy has to sit to be fed, and the way he plays out this whole surgery scenes. They're just gorgeous, but fantastic in the most weird, twisted, body horror sci-fi way. But this movie has really flown under the radar, and I don't think it gets nearly enough credit or recognition that it deserves. So if you've yet to see this, do yourself a favor and check it out. Venus is a 2022 Spanish supernatural horror movie. Directed by Yami Balaguerro, it stars Esther Esposito, Fernando Valdivielso, and Magui Mira. Horror invades the concrete corridors of a cursed apartment complex on the outskirts of Madrid.
El mensajero está listo. Ya está aquí.
This movie is so badass. It isn't quite as over-the-top body horror in this as some of the other ones on this list, but when it does go there, it goes there pretty far. There are definitely some violence and gore scenes and stuff that it shows that is visceral and pretty nasty. But there's a couple things in general that I won't say what they look like or what it is exactly, because it's a fun surprise when it happens. But there are some weird creature type of elements, some weird disgusting looking beings of sort that are disgusting and badass in a body horror disturbing way. But besides that, this is an exciting, entertaining, fantastic movie that is mysterious and weird, violent. There's a lot of action, especially in the final act. It gets brutal and savage. Lots of fighting, violent combat. But it's a really unique movie that has some twists and turns and wrinkles that are very one of a kind. It doesn't really feel like a lot of other movies I've seen. I mean, there are definite elements, of course, so you're gonna be like, yeah, I've seen this movie do that or this, but the way it's all put together, and then like I said, the wrinkles, the unique things that it does to the story in general, and the directions that it takes are very fresh and super entertaining. But this movie is an absolute blast, and one that I highly recommend. Infinity Pool is a 2023 sci-fi horror movie. Written and directed by Brandon Cronenberg, it stars Alexander Skarsgård, Mia Goth, and Cleopatra Coleman. The plot focuses on a couple who are enjoying an all-inclusive beach vacation when a fatal accident exposes the resort's perverse subculture of hedonistic tourism, reckless violence, and surreal horrors. I love this movie, and yeah, I know this is my second Brandon Cronenberg movie and third Cronenberg movie in general on this list, but if you're talking about body horror, you know you're going to have some Cronenberg films. And I did do another body horror movie in the past where I talked about some of the more well-known, more famous ones that included The Fly and other David Cronenberg movies, but this one was more of movies that I don't feel get talked about as much. And so I wanted to include some newer ones, and like I said, ones that are smaller indie movies that just don't get enough love like they should. But this was one of my favorite movies from 2023, and I felt like it really flew under the radar, which is surprising considering the cast involved, the look and style of it and all that. I think it was just a little too weird and out there for most people, like for a wide audience, but that's fine with me because I wanted extreme, I wanted bizarre, I want a movie like this to push the boundaries and offend you in different ways and do some strange out there elements. And this absolutely did. There is some shocking scenes, some uncomfortable scenes, disturbing things, and then the body horror isn't quite as pushed to the limit as a lot of the ones on this list, but the body horror that it does is more of a psychological nature, and what it's trying to say about us as a culture and us as a society, especially the wealthy elite and things like that, really makes the body horror that is in this hit a lot harder to me than what you may actually see on screen. But it is still a very disturbing movie and a lot deeper than I think a lot of people give it credit for. But it's well shot, it's really slick and stylish. I love the look of the costumes, these weird masks that they wear, the practical effects that are involved, just the strange nature and the way the movie is shot in general, the coloring and all those choices are fantastic, just gorgeous to look at. This is also one of my favorite Mia Goth performances. She is so over the top and wild in this, and I absolutely love it. And even though there is some depth to it, and there are layers, and there's a lot here as far as messaging and what it's trying to say, it doesn't forget to be an entertaining movie. It's bonkers, off the wall, entertaining as all hell. But if you're a fan of artsy, strange, bizarre horror movies that make you super uncomfortable, then this is a fantastic pick and one that I think is perfect for this Saturday night. So do yourself a favor this weekend, pick one of the movies off of this list, grab your popcorn and your candy and enjoy. And like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button, and remember guys, horror can be fun, and I'll see you all next time.